Ali Khamenei. He had survived one attempt on his life already, and for months he had been living in a bunker so deep the elevator took 5 minutes to reach the bottom. On February 28, 2026, he came up to his office. That was the last decision he ever made. Ali Khamenei was born in July 17, 1939 in Mashhad, Iran. Son of a religious scholar, he spent his early life in the clerical world, studying under Ayatollah Khamenei and moving through the revolutionary underground that would eventually reshape Iran. He wasn't even supposed to be supreme leader. When Khamenei died in 1989, Khamenei was considered a mid-level cleric without the religious credentials the position traditionally required, but the assembly of experts changed the rules anyway. He had 36 years to prove that power is more durable than legitimacy. He survived the Green Movement of 2009. He survived years of crippling sanction and also survived the U.S. assassination of General Qasem Soleimani in 2020. During the June 2025 12-day war between Israel and Iran, a plan to target him directly was vetoed by President Trump. He survived that too. In early 2026, the CIA tracked his movements for months. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu informed Trump on February 23 that Khamenei was due to meet with senior officials and shared the location. The timeline was accelerated. On February 28, a joint U.S.-Israeli airstrike struck his Tehran compound. He was in his office, not a secure bunker. His daughter, son-in-law, grandchild, and daughter-in-law died in the same strike. Iran's foreign ministry said he was safe and sound. Shortly before midnight, an unnamed Israeli official confirmed the body. Iranian state television confirmed his death the next morning. A broadcaster broke down in tears on air. Celebrations broke out across multiple Iranian cities including Tehran, Isfahan, Karaj, Shiraz, and Kermanshah. A statue of Khamenei was toppled in Dhahran. Security forces opened fire on celebrants in some areas. Thousands gathered simultaneously in the capital in mourning, waving flags and chanting "Death to America." On March 8, 2026, his son Mashaba was elected supreme leader. Ali Khamenei spent months underground to survive. One morning he came upstairs and that was it. Adolf Hitler. He promised a 1,000-year Reich, but he got just 12. And at the end, he was hiding underground in a burning city. Testing poison on his dog hopping petrol would keep history from finding him. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20, 1889 in Brau, Austria. His father was a domineering customs official. His mother coddled him. He failed art school entrance exams twice. And he spent his 20s homeless in Vienna, painting postcards, sleeping in shelter, and building a rage he would spend the rest of his life directing outward. He built the Nazi Party into the government of Germany. By 1933, he launched a war that killed up to 85 million people. By 1945, Soviet forces were shelling Berlin, and his generals were reporting armies that no longer existed. At midnight on April 28, 1945, he married Ava Braun in the bunker's map room. The next day, confirmation arrived that Mussolini had been captured and publicly displayed. Eyewitnesses say it hardened his decision. He had his dog Blondie poisoned with cyanide first to test its effectiveness. On April 30th at approximately 3:30 p.m., he shot himself in the right temple with his 7.65 Walter PPK pistol in his private quarters in Berlin. Ava Braun, his wife of less than 40 hours, took cyanide on the same sofa. His valet, Hins Linga, entered the room minutes later. He reported the smell of gunpowder and burnt almond, the telltale scent of cyanide. Hitler was slumped on the sofa. The pistol was at his feet. Their bodies were carried to the Reich Chancellery. Garden doused it in petrol and then burned. The first ignition attempt failed. The Soviets announced his remains had not been found. West Germany did not issue a death certificate until 1956. He spent his last hours underground testing poison on his dog, and when the fire went out, there was almost nothing left. Joseph Stalin, the most feared man on earth, lay on his floor for 13 hours. His staff stood outside the whole time, too afraid to walk in. Joseph Stalin was born on December 18, 1878 in Gori, Georgia. His father was a cobbler and a drunk who beat him regularly. He survived smallpox at 7, which left his face permanently scarred. He grew up understanding that the world caused pain without reason, and that the only protection was to become the one causing it. He outmaneuvered every rival, and by 1924 led the Soviet Union. He had two rules: trust no one, and punish first. He collectivized Soviet agriculture, and millions died in the famine that followed. He ran the Great Purge between 1936 and 1938, executing or sending to labor camps anyone he considered a threat. Historians estimate his policies caused between 6 and 20 million deaths. On the night of February 28, 1953, Stalin hosted 4 senior officials at his KVO dacha outside Moscow for movies, food, and drinking that lasted until approximately 5:00 a.m. No one could leave without his permission. After they left, he did not emerge. He had a strict rule against being disturbed. Staff found him collapsed on the floor near noon on March 1st. His right side was paralyzed. They had debated for hours. When doctors finally arrived, their hands shook too badly from fear to conduct the examination. The dentist even dropped his denture. 8 leeches were applied to his neck and face on 2 separate occasions. His blood pressure hit 210/120. He lingered for 4 days, slipping in and out of consciousness, unable to speak. The official cause was a massive hemorrhagic stroke. A credible counter-theory holds that one of the senior officials, Beria, slipped warfarin into his wine that night. Beria later reportedly told Molotov, "I did him in. I saved all of you." He died at 9:50 p.m. in March 1953. He had built the most obedient country in the world, but in the end there was nobody left willing to save his life. Fidel Castro. The CIA tried to kill him 638 times. Exploding cigars, poisoned food, a wet suit contaminated with tuberculosis, bacteria, mafia hitman. He survived every single one. Fidel Castro was born on August 13, 1926 in Bern, eastern Cuba, the illegitimate son of a wealthy Spanish sugar farmer. He was educated by Jesuits. He studied law at the University of Havana and graduated with a talent for speaking and an absolute certainty that history was on his side. He learned early that an idea delivered with enough conviction outlasts any government. He launched his revolution with 82 men on a leaky boat called the Grandma in December 1956. By January 1, 1959, he had overthrown Batista and marched into Havana. He served as prime minister from 1959 to 1976, then president from 1976 to 2008, 49 years as Cuba's paramount leader. He outlasted 9 U.S. presidents who tried to remove him. He survived the Bay of Pigs. He survived the Cuban Missile Crisis. He survived decades of embargo and CIA programs so elaborate they once hired a woman to give him a powder that would make his beard fall out. On July 31, 2006, he transferred power to his brother Raul after emergency intestinal surgery. He remained publicly active until roughly 2014. The CIA had assessed since at least 2005 that he suffered from Parkinson's disease. His exact cause of death was never disclosed by the Cuban government. On November 25, 2016, at 10:29 p.m., Fidel Castro died in Havana. Raul announced it on state television. The world's most powerful country spent half a century trying to kill him. Instead, he died of old age in his bed in his country on his term. Every man on this list believed that power was protection, but not one of them died free from what they built. Benito Mussolini. He invented the template Hitler copy. He ended the same way everyone he inspired would: running, captured, and put on display for the crowd. Benito Mussolini was born on July 29, 1883 in Proprio in northern Italy. His father was a blacksmith and socialist agitator. He grew up poor, brilliant, and furious. He learned early that politics was not about votes, it was about force. By 1922, he had marched on Rome with 30,000 black shirts and made himself prime minister at 39. By 1925, he had abolished parliament and declared himself Illich. Before he turned 40, he learned that crowds follow whoever gives them something to cheer for. He built the machinery of fascism and made it look like strength. He invaded Ethiopia, allied with Hitler. He declared war on the Allies in June 1940. By 1943, the Allies had landed in Sicily. The Italian king had him arrested and the Germans freed him again. He ran a puppet state in northern Italy for 2 more years. And by April 1945, that was also over. On April 25, 1945, Mussolini fled towards Switzerland in a German military convoy disguised in a Luftwaffe overcoat. Communist partisan Walter Odizio recognized him near Dongo 2 days later, reportedly by his bald head and distinctive feature. He was then captured on April 28. He was brought to Villa Belmont near Lake Co. His mistress, Clara Patacci, refused to leave his side. Some accounts say he shouted, "No, no." Others claim he said, "Aim at my heart." Both remain disputed. Then audio shot him. Their bodies were transported to Milan and hung upside down by meat hooks from an ESO petrol station in Lordo, the same square where a year earlier his men had displayed 15 partisan bodies. One woman fired 5 shots into his corpse for her 5 dead sons. The man who made fascism look like power ended upside down on a meat hook in the square he had spent his life performing for. Saddam Hussein. Someone smuggled a phone into the execution chamber. By the time Iraq figured out who did it, the footage had already been watched by millions. Saddam Hussein was born on April 28, 1937 in Alaja near Trit. His father was gone before he was born. His stepfather beat him with an asphalt-covered stick. He grew up an outsider who was never protected by anyone. He learned early that if no one protects you, protect yourself with enough force that no one tries again. He joined the Ba'ath Party at 20, participated in an assassination attempt on Iraq's prime minister at 22. He then became president in 1979, and within months, he purged his own cabinet in a session where he read names from a list, watched men dragged from the room, and made the survivors form the firing squad. He used chemical weapons against Kurdish civilians in Halabja in 1988. Approximately 5,000 died in a single attack. He invaded Kuwait in 1990. He built multiple palaces and maintained power through a network of fear that extended into every Iraqi home. On March 20, 2003, U.S. forces invaded Iraq and his army collapsed. He was later captured on December 13, 2003, hiding in an underground hole near his hometown. He looked messy, carrying $750,000 in cash and holding a pistol he never used. He was convicted of crimes against humanity for the 1982 Dhu Jail massacre, in which 148 Shia Iraqis were executed in retaliation for a failed attempt on his life. On December 30, 2006 at approximately 6:00 a.m. Saddam Hussein was hanged at Camp Justice in Kazmane, northeastern Baghdad. He held a Quran until the last moment. When asked if he was afraid, he said he had anticipated this moment since first coming to power. He was still praying when the trapdoor opened. All phones had been confiscated, but one was smuggled in. Witnesses taunted him at the gallows. The video spread globally within 48 hours. U.S. President George Bush later said he wished it had gone on in a more dignified way and called it kind of a revenge killing. He spent 24 years making everyone in Iraq afraid of him, but spent his last seconds praying while someone held up a phone. Muammar Gaddafi ruled Libya for 42 years. At the end, a rebel fighter found him hiding in a concrete drainage pipe, bleeding from a head wound, repeating the same word: "This is a sin against you." He was born in 1942 in a tent in the Libyan desert to a nomadic Bedouin family. No running water and no electricity. He taught himself to read using religious texts. He grew up obsessed with the idea that one man could reshape an entire Arab nation. He seized power in a coup in 1969 at 27. No election, no transfer. He simply took it. He learned that power given to no one cannot be taken away. He nationalized Libya's oil field. He funded revolutionary groups across the world. He even ordered the Lockerbie bombing. In 2011, when the Arab Spring reached Libya, he called protesters rats and cockroaches and promised to hunt them house to house. So NATO intervened. His army collapsed. His hometown of Sirte became his last holdout. On October 20, 2011, a NATO air strike struck his convoy trying to escape Sirte. He survived and fled on foot into a large drainage pipe. Amran Shaban of the Misrata militia found him. Gaddafi was bleeding from a head wound, conscious and still talking. He kept repeating Haramo, which means this is a sin against you. In his final weeks, his own inner circle described him as very delusional. He refused every offer to flee. They dragged him out into the daylight. He was beaten and then shot. The official cause of death was crossfire. Human Rights Watch contradicts this. His body was put on display in a refrigerated meat locker in Misrata for 4 days. The fatal shot was reportedly fired by a young man wearing a New York Yankees baseball cap. 42 years of myth ended in a drain pipe by a man in a Yankees cap, Nicolae Ceausescu. He banned Christmas in Romania for decades, and on Christmas Day 1989, the country gave him one back. Nicolae Ceausescu was born in 1918 in Scornished, a small village in southern Romania, the third of 10 children in a peasant household. He dropped out of school at 11 and joined the Communist Party at 15. He learned early that loyalty to the right people was the only currency that mattered. That lesson served him for 24 years in power. He became General Secretary in 1965. He built one of the most surveilled states in Eastern Europe. He banned abortion. He starved his own people to pay off foreign debt, while his wife Alina claimed credit for scientific research she had never done. He also learned another thing: power only holds as long as people are afraid to say no. By the late 1980s, the fear was cracked. On December 21, 1989, he stood on a balcony in Bucharest before hundreds of thousands. The crowd started booing mid-speech. The audio cut on state television. He looked confused. That moment was broadcast live. And that moment was the end. He fled the Central Committee building by helicopter on December 22nd. The pilot claimed to be under fire and landed in a field. The couple hijacked a car, but they were recognized and captured near Targovist. A military tribunal on Christmas morning charged him with genocide, destruction of the Romanian economy, and crimes against the state. His own defense lawyer asked for the death sentence. Ceausescu refused to recognize the court's authority. "I only recognize the Grand National Assembly," he said. Witnesses said the Ceausescus believed the trial was a formality until their hands were tied behind their backs. 7 paratroopers lined up in a courtyard. Both were shot simultaneously. He had no idea it was real until they tied his hand.